tell you these things to tear down these ideals. I'm telling you these things because people do that. They do reach up and tear down the ideals because every ideal is a judge. This is one of the reasons that we hate ideals, because they remind us of what we're not. There was a time when we could look at heroes and say, man, I wish I was like fill in the blank. I wish I was like Martin Luther King Jr. I wish I was like Gandhi. I wish I was like Mother Teresa. But once we have now torn down all of those ideals, we have nothing to strive for. We have nothing to strive for. I mean, if I ask you today, who do you admire? Who could you tell me? You know what the most common answer I get from students is? My students tell me Spider-Man. Like a fictional character. No, but like in real life, like who's a real life person who you can look up to and say, I'd like to model my life after that person? And by the way, are there terrible things about Conan O'Brien? Yes. He's a human being. Oh, he's not human. Yeah.
He's a saint.
He's a saint. Doesn't mean he's not human. Saints are humans too. Everybody in here has those dark thoughts. Everybody in here is capable of being an absolute incredible monster. But the heroic part is when you don't, when you have the ability to do terrible things, and yet you choose not to do them. The hero is the person who transcends that nature, who transcends what they are, stepping outside of what's normal, and goes into something that's almost supernatural, way further than you ever realized that you could. A hero is a person who makes the decision to transcend what's normal, and makes that decision frequently, and then comes back and shows us all that it's possible. Not that all of us are going to be heroes, but understand what I'm saying here. The hero, the hero transcends their nature and shows all of us that it's possible to transcend our natures and become something greater than what we presently are. Like with most virtues, virtue is a midpoint between the vices on two extremes. And it's a really good metric that you can ask yourself, am I being courageous here by speaking up or by doing something, or am I being reckless? Now, a big part of being reckless, by the way, is not knowing what the consequences of something are. Like, I was using an example last period, I see videos of people who they're like some just like monster of a guy just standing there, like so big his arms won't even close, And one video I'm thinking of specifically, and there's this girl who's like 105 pounds, and she's like up on her tippy toes in his face, just going off on him and everything. And she like smacks him, and she smacks him, and she smacks him again. And then finally he just, boom, just moves his arm. He basically hits her with his limp arm. That's all it is, not even a full punch. And just like drops her. She hits the ground, she like turns even as she hits the ground. And then everybody like flips out, oh my God, I can't believe you did that. And he feels, immediately he's like, oh, hey, she's in my, he's trying like defending himself. I'm not saying you should go around doing that, but I wonder what doesn't happen to the video. She doesn't get back up and go get back in his face though. And you might think like, oh my gosh, she's so courageous for doing that. Well, was she courageous, or did she just not believe that there were consequences for it? Yeah, being courageous is, part of it is to know the consequences and believe them, and then to go ahead and do them anyway. Like I'm thinking back to this video I saw one time. It was like something, it's an old video. It was like the 50th or 60th anniversary of D-Day or something like that. And they got a bunch of survivors from that, and they brought them, I should say survivors, they got a bunch of victors from that day. And they brought them up onto the beach and up onto the top. And this is a place that they had stormed 50 or 60 years earlier with machine gun fire raining down on them. You're in your boat, the boat lands, the door pops open, and before you even get off that boat, 2 or 3 people in that boat may have died, but you may have just been shot. Right, boom, bullet's going right past you for some reason, hits them and not you, and you rush forward anyway. And so they ask him, one of the I guess it's a reporter, I'm guessing, comes up and asks one of the guys, like one of the worst questions you can ask someone like that. What's it like to be a hero? You don't ask stuff like that. It's like if you ever like interviewing a police officer, don't ask him like, so have you ever shot and killed anybody? It's like these are not normally the things they want to talk about. So they ask him, what's it like to be a hero? And the guy, genuine, humble, he just seriously goes, I wasn't a hero. I was just a coward who kept moving forward. And a lot of times, whether or not you kept going forward or whether somebody else kept going forward was just a matter of dumb luck. There's a guy on top of a cliff, hundreds of yards from you, who does this, and you're alive. And if he does this, you're dead. Just a quarter of an inch to the right or the left and somebody else dies. It's just dumb, stupid luck. And sometimes it's a hard thing it's hard to face that, I imagine, because you realize that that's the only reason that you're alive and not somebody else. And you ask that question, why? So there's a part of courage. You have to be aware of the risks. If you were just on that boat and you're like, no way, this doesn't happen to me. It's not possible. You really think it can't happen. Well, then you're not really courageous. So a big part of courage is to know the risks and to take them anyway. So a hero tale suggests that the price of courage is beyond ordinary budget. And I like that idea earlier about that you were saying that there are these limits around you. And a lot of times those limits, well, the lines are immaterial. Yeah, they're there, but a lot of times the limitations of your life they're just suggestions. They're not guidelines. Like, is that really as far as you can go, or is there some limit beyond yourself? And your life actually might look something like this, where you really can't go as far as you think you can in some areas, but you can go way farther than you realize in other areas. And courage is one of those things, because that girl, like I said earlier, she got hit by this dude's arm. She does a backflip as she hits the ground and she comes up. She's learned something, by the way, that she couldn't have learned any other way. First off, she learned that this is a person who, of course, is willing to do that, and this is the person who she pushed so far that he did that. But then she also learned, I took that and I'm still alive. And so then the next time you can actually afford to be more courageous, because if she does it again, now she recognizes the risk. She knows it. And it's not just like, he wouldn't dare do this. He wouldn't. Then you realize, oh yeah, someone would dare do that. Now you can actually be courageous in your behavior because you've been hit before. You know what it's like. But more importantly, you survived it. And so having survived it, now you know that you can go way further than you realize. And so we suggest that the price of courage is beyond our ordinary budget, what we can typically afford. Somebody used the phrase, I think it was you, Mark, someone used the phrase that it costs you something. Yeah, and it should cost you something. It should cost you something. I was using the example last period of the only true superhero, who of course is Batman. Every other superhero is not a real superhero. Like Superman, yeah, he's got super in the name, but so does the Übermensch. But Superman, he can land in front of you and take a bunch of bullets in the chin. And it doesn't harm him at all. Doesn't even mess up his chin. Maybe he'll tear his shirt if he gets hit in the shirt, but that's pretty much it. Batman, if he lands in front of you and he gets shot, he dies. There is real damage there that can happen to this guy. And then you think about what it is that he does in terms of his persona and his shadow. I don't know who the persona is in that case, or the shadow. I don't know if Bruce Wayne is the persona and Batman is the shadow, or if Batman is the persona and Bruce Wayne is the shadow. I tend to think that Batman, that Batman is the persona. But in any event, this is the guy that people will say, he's just rich. That's his superpower. He's just rich. No, that actually makes it harder for him, because this is a guy who just hangs out with girls and parties and lives in mansions and drives Ferraris. That could be his whole life. And I wonder how many people looked at that and said, I wish that was my life. And some people think this. And of course, if it was, you'd probably die from meaninglessness, because what do you do all day except for the same thing over and over and over? People who say, man, I want a job, I can just retire and just kick back on the beach and drink margaritas. Yeah, that might be fun for 7 days, maybe 2 weeks, maybe a month. But after a while, you start looking around like, I gotta do something. This is why people who start companies and then sell them off for billions don't just party the rest of their lives, because they recognize something that we should recognize, which is that there's more to life than just that. That could be part of life, of course, but if it's the main driver of life, it just leads to boredom, like anything else. If there's just repetition, constant repetition of your life, it leads to boredom. No matter how high level it is. Even if it's every weekend I fly to Paris, on a private jet, and you think it's great probably for the first few weekends. And after a while, it gets annoying. And then you stop doing it, and you start looking for something else, no matter how grand it is. We always have to have some level of variety. And this is why we even create problems for ourselves sometimes because we need a problem to solve, even if we think we have no problems. Sounds great, but all that we mean when we say that is, I wish I didn't have the problems that I have right now. But as soon as you solve those other problems, other ones will crop up or you'll create your own, because that's how we stay alive. We're overcoming things. And that's the thing that we can learn from the hero story, which is, what does the hero do? Well, the hero overcomes something. Remember from the archetypes that the hero is seeking mastery. And of course, mastery of what? Well, mastery of themselves. It isn't just to be the master over a kingdom. It isn't just to be the master of some kind of a sport, although those could play an important role. It's to master oneself. And this is what Batman does. He masters himself. In fact, that guy goes so far that not only does he have these two lives, but he goes out of his way to make sure that the public face one is hated. He presents Bruce Wayne as someone who's to be hated. Oh, he's just some rich freeloader who doesn't do anything except for party and all that. He presents that public image so that people will hate him because he's doing the other work that he wears a mask and doesn't want anybody to know that he's doing this other great thing. In fact, from the movies, if any of you saw the Dark Knight trilogy, he actually sets himself up to make it look like he killed Harvey Dent, because the rest of the public doesn't know that he's gone bad yet, and so he dies before that can happen, before anybody discovers that he's become a supervillain. And then Batman makes it look like he killed the guy. So now everybody hates Batman. Everyone's hunting him. But that's so that they can remember Harvey Dent as a hero, as a great man, because he recognized that people need a public face to follow. Even if it's fake, that's part of the story, isn't it? Everybody in there is that way. In fact, there's only one genuine character in Batman, and that's the Joker. He's the only one who doesn't have two faces, ironically enough. Yeah? But he's also the most dangerous because he's all shadow. He's no persona, man. And so Batman is a guy who presents himself to be scorned so that he can sacrifice himself for others. And he sacrifices himself for others in ways that nobody's ever supposed to know. No one's ever going to realize. That's what it is partially to be a hero. To move forward and to know courageously, this could be the end of it. I'm never going to get the accolades that I deserve. I'm never going to get the admiration and the love and all that. And sometimes you do, of course. Sometimes you do, and we remember a lot of those people. And of course, there are people that you'll notice that whenever we find out, like Martin Luther King Jr., right? Great man, right? Yeah, but he had illegitimate children with his secretaries, yes? Yeah, the good reverend. He's supposed to be a religious man. Has a doctorate at 27 years old in divinity, by the way. And he's a reverend, but he's having children out of wedlock all over the place. So therefore, does that mean that we no longer respect the work that he did? Or is it that we look at him and go, what a human? Now maybe like it'd be better to have my weakness is chocolate. maybe that'd be better. Like, Martin Luther King Jr., great man, but he ate a lot of chocolate. And maybe that might be a better thing to have. I mean, that's a pretty big, flaw that he had. But Gandhi, right? Be the change you want to see in the world. Gandhi's a great man, yes, peace and all that stuff. Except for the fact that he slept naked in bed with 12-year-olds so that he could prove his own self-control. True story, you can look this up, and sometimes he did that with his cousins, just to prove that he could control himself. If not touching naked 12-year-olds is a test for you, there's a word for that. If you put a plate of hot crap, like actual fecal, in front of me, and gave me a fork and said, all right, Scallon, let's see you exercise your self-control. Don't eat that plate of shit. That's not much of a test for me. I'm like, oh, you got it, man. I'm not touching that thing. So the very fact that he would view that as a test tells you a couple of things about Gandhi, yeah? Gandhi's big complaint, by the way, about the British was that, if you can believe this, the British treated the Indians like they were Africans. Can you believe that? He used the Hindi word for the N-word to refer to black people. Did not like it, black people. Did not like that dude. So therefore, do we now look back and go, Gandhi, what a horrible piece of crap. undo everything he ever did. But I'm telling you these things, and I don't tell you these things to tear down these ideals. I'm telling you these things because people do that. They do reach up and tear down the ideals because every ideal is a judge. This is one of the reasons that we hate ideals, because they remind us of what we're not. There was a time when we could look at heroes and say, man, I wish I was like fill in the blank. I wish I was like Martin Luther King Jr. I wish I was like Gandhi. I wish I was like Mother Teresa. Another one, not a good person in a lot of ways. But once we have now torn down all of those ideals, we have nothing to strive for. We have nothing to strive for. I mean, if I ask you today, who do you admire? Who could you tell me? You know what the most common answer I get from students is? It's been a couple years since I've asked, so maybe the numbers have changed. You. I ask, what's that? You. No. That would be bad too. My students tell me Spider-Man. Like a fictional character. No, but like in real life, like who's a real life person who you can look up to and say, I'd like to model my life after that person? Maybe Josue?
Conan O'Brien.
Who?
Conan O'Brien.
Conan O'Brien.
That's my guy.
Okay, why?
He's funny.
That's it? That's all it takes? All right, fair enough. And maybe, maybe. I know some terrible things about Conan O'Brien. What can I tell you? I don't want to tear him down. And by the way, are there terrible things about Conan O'Brien? Yes. He's a human being. Oh, he's not human.
No.
Yeah.
He's a saint.
He's a saint. Doesn't mean he's not human. Saints are humans too. But every ideal is a judge, and so there are people out there who will do everything they can to tear down those characters. But here's what we also learn from those people: that you can transcend that and be great. So you've got these, I'm not going to defend Gandhi, but you get what I'm saying though. Like he's got that thing going on, but you can still transcend that. And even though you have your flaws, even though you have your wickedness, and everybody in here has their wickednesses, everybody in here has those dark thoughts, everybody in here is capable of being an absolute incredible monster. But the heroic part is when you have the ability to do terrible things, and yet you choose not to do them. The hero is the person who transcends that nature, who transcends what they are, stepping outside of what's normal, and goes into something that's almost supernatural, way further than you ever realized that you could. And of course, a hero, and this is where Batman kind of fails. If Batman was real in real life, this is where Batman would fail, because the hero also has to come back and tell us about it, so that way we can learn from it. A hero is a person who makes the decision to transcend what's normal, and makes that decision frequently, and then comes back and shows us all that it's possible. Not that all of us are going to be heroes, but understand what I'm saying here. The hero, the hero transcends their nature and shows all of us that it's possible to transcend our natures and become something greater than what we presently are. That's where Batman fails, because nobody ever knows what he's done. He has to do it in secret. But the hero is the person who comes back and teaches us all that we can transcend what we presently are, so we can become better than what we see ourselves as. The hero suggests that the price of courage is beyond the ordinary budget. It makes us believe that we can't do things, obviously, because every ideal is a judge. But it tempts us to disown the common capacity of the human spirit to transcend normality. We can. It's possible. And that's why you should keep your heroes. You should keep your heroes, whoever they are. Understand that your heroes are flawed. That's fine, because you are too. I wouldn't encourage you to indulge in their flaws. Don't use their flaws as an excuse for not following them. There are great people who've done some terrible things, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't be like them in the good ways. Don't be like them in the bad ways, of course. Questions, comments, concerns, complaints, criticisms, critiques? Happy Tuesday. Not a negative thing, not a bad thing.